Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Gwen Jacobsen, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 117, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.ca.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. This week's edition of the Neepawa Banner and Press is dated Friday, April the 30th, 2021. The front page news says, "Third time's the charm? Manitoba implements restrictions once again to limit spread of COVID-19. More restrictive public health orders are back in effect across Manitoba. On Monday, April the 26th, Premier Brian Pallister, along with Dr. Brent Roussin, the Chief Public Health Officer, announced new orders as COVID-19 cases continue to rise in the province. Despite our best collective efforts and having some of the strictest public health orders in the country, Manitoba's cases still continue to rise, which threatens the ability of our healthcare system to care for those in need," said Pallister. "We are at a critical point in the third wave. It is a race between the variants and vaccines, and right now the variants are winning. We need a few weeks in order to allow our accelerated vaccine efforts to catch up and change the course of that race." What are the changes? Those new public health orders, which came into effect Wednesday, April 28th at 12:01 a.m. include the following. No visitors allowed to private households, either in or outdoors. Exceptions include one visitor for people who live alone. No indoor gatherings permitted, and outdoor gatherings of up to 10 people are allowed in public outdoor spaces only. Faith-based gatherings limited to 25% capacity or a maximum of 10 people. Indoor mask use required at all times. Patio dining restricted to groups of 4 people only, with no household restrictions. Food courts in shopping centers and malls are required to close. Fitness centers continue to be limited to 25% capacity, but patrons and staff must maintain physical distancing of 9 feet. Spectators at outdoor sports and rec facilities limited to 1 parent or caregiver spectator per participant if physical distancing of 6 feet is maintained. Dance, theater, and music schools will continue to be limited to 25% capacity, but the new orders will limit the maximum number of people on site to 10, with 1 parent or caregiver spectator per youth participant if physical distancing of 6 feet is maintained. Personal service business can operate at 50% capacity, but appointments will be required. Day camps permitted to have up to 10 children indoors and outdoors. And the last one, retail stores limited to 25% of the capacity of the store or up to 250 patrons, whichever is lower. And malls will be limited to 25% of the facility's capacity. These measures will be in place for 4 weeks, stretching past the May long weekend. Roussin added that during those 4 weeks, the province expects to vaccinate more than 300,000 more people. So if we do all our part, this could very well be our last strict orders. Hopefully. There's a new kind of fast food coming to Neepawa. A very different restaurant will be joining Neepawa's food scene in the next couple of months. Prairie Donaire is a Canadian franchise that offers pitas, wraps, shawarma, and donaire. It currently has locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan and is now expanding into Manitoba, with Neepawa set to house the first location in the province. The new restaurant will be located in the Bay Hill Inn and Suites, in the space that was a Subway restaurant years ago. Bhavish Patel, manager of Bay Hill Inn and Suites, said that he and owner Girish Patel are excited to bring a new business into the community and create more jobs. Bhavish noted that the owner had been looking for a way to use the former Subway space since he took ownership last summer. Girish had been traveling through Alberta and Saskatchewan last year looking for business opportunities, which was how he came across the Prairie Donaire franchise. They heard a lot of good things about the business, and Beavish said they liked the idea because it offers fresh ingredients and a new flavor for the community. COVID-19 has slowed down the process a little bit, but Beavish said they are currently finalizing things with the contractor, so construction should be starting soon. We are thinking we'll open July the 1st, adding that it will depend on COVID-19 restrictions allowing for it. We're hoping everything goes smooth. The president and CEO of Prairie Donaire, Joshua Baji, stated that they have been working to get this location open for a while now. I originally drove out there in June and July of last year to meet the owner of the location and check out the space to see if we could manage the retrofit. We have had a lot of success in small towns with Prairie Donaire, and the franchisee figured we would be a perfect match for the community. For those unfamiliar with what donaire is, it's essentially rotisserie roasted meat served on a pita with fresh vegetables and sauce. Prairie Donaire offers a number of variations, including bowls and salads, as well as Canadian twists on the Mediterranean dish. Prairie Donaire is a game changer when it comes to donaire's, wraps, pitas, or shawarmas. We have the most unique options on our menu. Once you give us a try, you will forever be hooked. And there's a picture here of the construction that's starting at the Bay Hill Inn. They hope for a goal of opening July the 1st. Travel and entertainment section. Lockdown launches a long-time dream. This past year, life has changed for everyone in countless ways. For Manitoban Christine Paddocks, some good came with the bad when the lockdown began, and with it the opportunity to dust off a lifelong dream. Christine has been a piano teacher for over 10 years in Rivers, Manitoba, as well as a worship leader in Rivers Community Church. When the first lockdown hit in March of 2020, her teaching came to a halt, along with her other activities and those of her family. Initially, the lockdown came as a bit of a shock, but Christine soon embraced the opportunity to spend more time reflecting and writing and connecting with her family. Songwriting has been a passion of Christine's for over 20 years. Her songs help her express and process her emotions, but they are rarely heard outside of her own living room, until now. 6 weeks into the first lockdown in 2020, Christine wrote her debut single, Strange Times, it was called, to put words to the feelings and questions that arose from the worldwide pandemic. In August, she was encouraged by Canadian songwriter and worship leader Brian Dirksen from Abbotsford, BC, to have her song professionally produced. Brian connected Christine with Winnipeg singer-songwriter Jaylene Johnson. Jaylene headed up the project as executive producer, along with Marie Joy, a talented up-and-coming Winnipeg music artist and producer. This was my first time working with producers, and it was not typical, explains Christine. Because of the restrictions, everything was done virtually through Zoom and texting. When the restrictions loosened at the end of January, I made a one-time trip to Marie's studio in Winnipeg to record the main vocals. In spite of the physical distancing, Christine asserts that the experience was a gift, giving her a positive focus in a time where there has been so much negativity, stress, and fear. This has been the most exciting and vulnerable thing I've ever done, and I hope it will be inspiring to people. It is never too late to pursue your dreams. Christine's single, entitled Strange Times, will be available on April the 30th, 2021, on all digital streaming platforms. I think I'll look at that later. Helen Drysdale, out of Helnes Kitchen. This week's edition is called General Stores. Throughout the last 2 centuries, in many rural towns across the prairies stood the general store, named General Store, as they carried a general line of merchandise, everything that the people from the town and surrounding rural areas needed. This wide selection of goods included such items as horse harnesses, cheddar cheese, flannel work shirts, coveralls, pitchforks, tobacco, fabric and sewing notions, soaps, salves, spices, crocks, dishes, guns and ammunition, liver pills, and tea. Basically, everything that you could not produce yourself. In many remote areas, a single store serviced the entire community. A store jam-packed with goods greeted the customers who walked into it. The 2 outside walls were lined with shelves, sometimes right up to the ceiling. Glass display cases held the watches and chains, jackknives, and a variety of shiny things. Items hung by hooks from ceilings. When you walked in, the aroma was a blend of ripe cheese, pickles, kerosene, leather, and tobacco. Many of the stores had small post offices, and many of the early telephone switchboards were located in the general store. At that time, customers gave their shopping list to the shopkeeper in his long white apron. The list would then be filled by the storekeeper behind the counter. The pot-bellied stove usually sat in the middle of the store, surrounded by a couple of chairs, a coal bucket, and often a checkerboard. It was the place to meet and visit, catch up on the world and political news and the local gossip, while the storekeeper got your order ready. If there were a death, birth, or marriage, the shopkeeper knew about it. Somewhere on a door or a wall you could read the notices. All the local events, auctions, lost and found, and even wanted a wife with good teeth notices were posted there. The counter held a wheel of cheese. When a customer wanted to make a cheese purchase, the storekeeper often gave a sample by cutting a sliver of cheese and passing it to the customer on the point of a knife. Beside the cheese was the coffee grinder. Coffee beans were packed in a large sack, weighed out as needed and coarsely grounded. The counter also held the cash register and the ledger, with its pages full of names recording the charge purchases. The scale for weighing goods purchased in bulk also sat on the counter. Many bulk items were ordered as, "I'll have 20 cents worth of dried beans." The purchases were wrapped in brown paper from a wrapping paper unit with spool of string for tying the paper, both of which would be repurposed at home, of course. In the fall, wooden boxes of apples were abundant and replaced at Christmas time with nuts, toys, and small boxes of Japanese oranges. There were no sales, as we now know, at a general store. Long woolen underwear and summer bonnets were available year-round at the same price. Sugar is said to have been purchased more often than all other items. Money was often scarce, so the storekeeper was often paid with a combination of cash and farm produce, such as eggs, chicken, potatoes, or firewood. Most stores had a credit system, as farmers had to wait for their crop to sell. For the store owner, this was a balancing act: how much credit to lend out and how not to offend the customer when his limit was reached. The general store eventually became the victim of competition from catalog shopping, farmers' cooperatives, new specialty stores, and of course the expanded travel with the motor car. The general store I remember was the McCamus store in Arden. It started off as McCamus and Boughton in 1889, and in 1898 it became solely McCamus. Hugh and Mabel were the third family members to own this store. They ran the McCamus General Store in Arden until the retirement in 1993, at which time the family business had been in operation for over 100 years. I remember my Grandma Gagnon making this delightful cake with many ingredients probably purchased from a general store. One of her recipes is called sour cream cake, and the other is the vanilla butter icing. And there's a picture here of the exterior of the old McCamus General Store in the 20s. Now for the Spruce Plains RCMP Report by Corporal Jacob Stanton. April 19th. RCMP responded to 2 residential alarms in Minnedosa. Police attended and found everything secure with no cause for concern. Police received a report of a suspicious person in Neepawa, who they had previously dealt with numerous times the day before. Police made contact and made attempts to provide assistance to the individual. April 20th, RCMP responded to a report of a person failing to comply with their court-ordered condition in Neepawa and a suspicious person in Minnedosa. Both matters are still under investigation. April 21st, RCMP received a report of roofing nails being scattered in the parking lot and sidewalk on a business property in Minnedosa. The matter is under investigation. While conducting traffic enforcement in Gladstone, police conducted a traffic stop with the driver who was found to be driving while prohibited. The vehicle was towed and the driver was charged and released with a future court date. April 22nd, RCMP responded to 2 separate vehicle versus deer collisions in the RM of Oakview and the RM of Rosedale. There were minor injuries reported in one collision and none in the second. Police were dispatched to a commercial alarm at a business in Neepawa, which was cleared and found secure. April 23rd, RCMP received a report of more roofing nails being found on multiple streets in Minnedosa. The matter remains under investigation. Police responded to an abandoned 911 call at a business in Minnedosa, which was later determined to have been dialed accidentally. April 24th, RCMP responded to a report of an abandoned vehicle in Minnedosa. Police completed inquiries on the vehicle and determined it was owned by a local resident and not abandoned. Police responded to 2 commercial alarms, one in Neepawa, one in Eden. Both were determined to be false. April 25th, RCMP responded to a theft of vehicle from a business in the municipality of Westlake Gladstone. The investigation is ongoing. Police received a report of vandalism in Minnedosa where a youth was reported to have spray painted a residence, and the matter is under investigation. RCMP conducted 16 traffic enforcement actions during this reporting period. Now there's a large article here by the Beautiful Plains School Division entitled Local Voices, Local Choices. There has been quite a bit of discussion and lots of questions about the Manitoba government's plan for education. An education review was implemented in 2018, and this review cost approximately $1 million. And although the government has accepted the 75 recommendations from the report, most of the recommendations by the review board do not appear in the changes proposed in legislation. In fact, The review authors find the new government legislation a bit of a mystery. Instead, an Education Modernization Act is being presented in the legislature. Both the Premier and the Minister of Education stated that education dollars need to be spent in the classroom and not on administration. This is puzzling for Beautiful Plains School Division, as that has always been a practice in this division. Beautiful Plains has consistently prioritized resources for students and classrooms in yearly budgets. Smaller class sizes, adequate staffing, safe physical environments in the form of portable classrooms and new renovations are foremost to Beautiful Plains' strategic plan. The statement that local school boards do not put their dollars into the classroom or have the students' and staff well-being at the core of decision-making is simply untrue. Every decision the Beautiful Plains School Board makes has the core question: what is the best for our students and staff? The government's new plan, called Better Education Starts Today, eliminates the 37 local school boards and replaces it with an appointment provincial educational authority, provincial advisory council, and individual school community councils for each school in the province. The idea is that this will save $40 million. Our local school board costs less than $42,000 annually to operate. Clearly, there will be substantial costs associated with the Provincial Education Authority, a Provincial Advisory Council, and local school community councils. When the dust settles, this initiative could end up costing taxpayers far more, while our local voice will have been lost and replaced by a provincial entity. Not only will our local voice in education be lost, but the local businesses will suffer as well. The procurement of supplies will predominantly be made from Winnipeg instead of locally sourced trades and suppliers. Staff members employed at a local level may not be part of our communities anymore, and the impacts of that will be felt by all businesses. The government's idea is that dealing with one provincial entity for supplies will be more of a bargaining tool, but it usually ends up not only costing more to have non-local trades and services due to travel and a lack of understanding about local needs and concerns, the level of service and quality of work is often substantially reduced. In this new plan, our division loses its ability to make plans and decisions based on our community's unique needs. Beautiful Plains has consistently made decisions about expenditures based on what our community has needed. There are several examples of this every single year, such as support staff, student services, and early literacy support. When newcomers started coming to our communities for jobs, we worked closely with local industry to gauge the number of new students and their specific needs. Extra staff and programming was added to address the unique language and learning needs of our new students. In 2011, to help students reach their full potential and address some of the local community needs, we created an apprenticeship program. Some students were interested in trades as careers, and high school courses were not reflecting those needs. The Beautiful Plains School Board allocated funds to hire an apprenticeship coordinator. In this way, students were able to go to school part-time and apprentice at a trade part-time. The coordinator was the liaison between industry and the school. This program has been very successful, with 170 students being part of the apprenticeship program, accumulating 1,210 credits. Not only have these students' needs been served, but likewise the growing demand in our communities has benefited. Another way Beautiful Plains has responded to the unique needs of the community was hiring a divisional psychologist. The Student Advisory Committee, as well as staff, spoke to the board about students struggling with stress, addictions, and mental health issues. An addictions worker, or AFM, was brought in to counsel and support the high school students. Programs such as Roots of Empathy, Mental Health First Aid, and student groups such as the Social Justice Committee and the Student Advisory Committee were started for a positive and proactive approach. As well, the board hired an additional speech and language pathologist as a result of an increased need identified during preschool screening and in discussion with our staff who are working directly with our students. The preschool screening program is locally implemented for children in need of additional support before they start kindergarten, and resources are put in place to meet those needs. Another area that the Beautiful Plains Division has prioritized funds to ensure success for our students is providing quality Wi-Fi and investing in fiber optics and quality connectivity for all our schools. Recently, with the pressure to provide quality remote learning opportunities for our students as a result of the pandemic, wireless upgrades occurred at RJ Wow in Carberry Collegiate, Hazel M. Kellington, and Neepawa Collegiate. Wi-Fi systems are also accessed by families who need home internet in temporary learning settings. Monies were allotted for computer replacement plans, iPads, and Chromebooks for middle year students, mobile computer stations, robotics and coding tools, as well as professional development for teachers. This was done well ahead of the government's Remote Learning Center or guidelines for remote learning, as we recognized the long need before the government was able to formulate a plan. These initiatives were all made possible by the Beautiful Plains Division listening to the needs of the local community, staff, and students, and making budget decisions accordingly. Our local board made choices based on local voices. With the new government plan, it is feared that all these programs implemented for the betterment of our students will be lost. Having the ability to make decisions at a local level allows for far greater flexibility and agility than it would be if it were made in Winnipeg. The new plan, Better Education Starts Today, does not address the issues of connectivity, child poverty, and inadequate education funding, which have been completely exacerbated by this pandemic. In Manitoba, poverty affected 16.3% of two-parent households, compared to the national average of 9.8%. In single-parent households, the rate quadruples, with 63.4% of children living in poverty. Also, many communities still struggle with reliable, accessible internet. This new plan does not address that in any way. The pandemic has brought into focus very clearly that our students don't need more screen time or remote learning, as the new bill suggests, but more social and personal interaction. We need to ensure our schools stay open and students have direct contact with humans for their social, mental, and physical health. The government has also used the PISA results to state that Manitoba students are well behind the national standards in reading, math, and science. The PISA tests are given every 3 years, last one was in 2018, to every 15-year-old in selected schools. These test results can be misleading because while Manitoba did score lower than some other provinces, it was noted that 8 out of 10 students in Manitoba were at or better than the Canadian standard. 2 out of 10 students scored lower, and that is reflective of 2 out of 10 children in Manitoba who live in poverty. The PISA results show Manitoba has one of the lowest socioeconomic scores in Canada. The Manitoba government has no plan to correct the social inequities in our province. Also, Canada scored as one of the top countries in the world, and Manitoba contributed to this assessment. While academics are important, schools have become so much more than places where students learn to read and write. They are now critical in supporting students in their overall development, health, and ability to transition into becoming successful in the world outside of school. Our division has always invested in our school's extracurricular activities, making sure that all students have access to sports, clubs, music, and art classes. We have continued to understand and concentrate our efforts on attempting to ensure our students have access to a wide array of athletics, arts, trades, leadership, social justice, and academic options. While there are certainly ways for us to improve in our education system, this new plan seems to be getting rid of everything that is working and replacing it with an ill thought out proposal, which will affect Manitoba children for years to come. The idea that students from south of Carberry to the Saskatchewan border west of Roblin can be treated the same is simply illogical. The removal of school closure moratoriums, as well as the removal of the guarantee that children do not spend more than an hour on a bus, will negatively impact rural students. This new legislation is aimed at cutting costs, but at what cost to our youth? Wow, that's a great article. Day program building receives area support. Now there's a number of photographs on this page and on another page which I will show you. And it reads, both the Neepawa Banner and Press and Neepawa's Touchwood Park Association were particularly busy from April 21st to the 27th. During that time, Touchwood received an assortment of donations from the area to support the association's new day program building. The funds received will help startup costs. All presentations and tours which were given afterwards were conducted with COVID-19 guidelines in mind. In the top photograph, we have Ray Drayson, Bob Adrianson, Malcolm Murray on the far right, and they donated $7,500 to Touchwood on behalf of the RM of North Cyprus, Langford. Jeff Braun, Vice Chair, and Arlie Wilson, the Executive Director, accepted the check on behalf of the association. And here we have a picture of Brian Headley, the Neepawa Town Councillor and Deputy Mayor, presenting $8,000 on behalf of the town of Neepawa to Touchwood Board member Gwen McCaskill. And down here we have Jeff Miner, representing the Neepawa Gladstone Co-op, presenting Shelley Lepischuk, who is a board member for Touchwood, with a donation of $2,500. And it continues on. Here, the local generosity continued for Touchwood with the check presentations pictured here. The RM of Rosedale, presented by Michael Porrick and Rob Scott, presented donation of $1,406 to Touchwood on Friday. The check was received by Judy Gabler, Touchwood board member, and Blake McCutcheon, a board member. And here we have Teresa Francis, representing Farm Canada Credit, presenting Touchwood Vice Chair Jeff Braun and Holly Pankratz, Director of Day Services, with a donation of $1,000. These funds specifically will be put towards creating a playground accessible for a variety of users. Here we have Wayne Jacobsen, President of Neepawa Rotary Club, presenting two checks totaling $6,400 to Touchwood representatives Shelley Lepischuk and Blake McCutcheon. Of this total, $3,400 consists of a portion of the funds raised by the Rotary auction. The Rotary has also applied for a Rotary District grant, which was approved to make up the other $3,000 in order to support the work that Touchwood does in the community. And here we have Stacy Turner and Michelle Gilmore of Stride Credit Union presenting a $1,500 check to Jody Baker and Blake McCutcheon, representing Touchwood Park. And yes, and this is a different presentation. The Rotary Club's virtual beer tasting event, which took place on April the 9th, was held to raise money for the Neepawa Nursery School. Rotary President Wayne Jacobsen explained that they had originally planned to do the beer tasting as just a social event for the club, but when they heard that the nursery school's provincial funding was being cut, they decided to open it up to the community and host it as a fundraiser. The event was held in partnership with Farmery Estate Brewery, which supplied the beer, and Neepawa Gladstone Co-op, which supplied an appetizer package to ticket buyers. Farmery and Co-op both donated back the cost of the beverages and food to the Rotary Club so that they could make a larger donation to the nursery school. The total that was donated to the nursery school was $1,000. And here we have the Neepawa Gladstone Co-op General Manager Brian Headley, the Nursery School Director Susan Pollock, Rotary President Wayne Jacobsen, and Farmery Senior Tour Guide Jim Danino. And there was one other picture for donations. This one, on April 23rd, Wayne Jacobsen, president of the Neepawa Rotary Club, presented Don Schmall, who is chair of the Beautiful Plains Community Medical Clinic, and Dr. Kristen Wareham with a check of $2,000 to help cover the costs of a fridge the clinic recently acquired to store vaccines. The new fridge will be able to store vaccines such as the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, flu vaccine, and the vaccines required for babies and children. It is also equipped with an alarm in case of a temperature change or power outage. The total cost of the fridge is around $6,000. And here we have a picture of Neepawa banner and press staff member John Drinkwater. He rolled up his sleeve for a COVID-19 vaccine at the Brandon Super Site in the Keystone Center on Wednesday, April 21st. Drinkwater said it didn't hurt despite the large syringe. And then there's a disclaimer. Don't be afraid. The needle pictured is not the real size of the ones used to vaccinate. All right, now next we have a few more pictures. Eve and Madden Vanel were helping their mom Joni clean up trash in the ditches around Neepawa earlier this month. And here we have a picture. April 21st, fire crews were supervising a controlled burn in the town of Neepawa to get rid of the dead grass from last year. Now, Neepawa and Area 4-H Beef Club learns about cattle health by Sviana Bjornsson. This year, the Neepawa and Area 4-H Beef Club have held their business meetings on Zoom. In March, we had Mr. Yvonne Bruno from the Central Testing Lab out of Winnipeg join us. He talked about the importance of testing your feed, how to properly collect your feed, and all the types of testing they provided. It was very interesting. Then in April, we had Dr. Liz Ostendorf from the Neepawa Vet Clinic join us. She talked to us about general herd health, how to spot if your 4-H calf or any other animal was sick, how to treat it, and the normal range of temperature in calves and cows. We asked her lots of questions. South Parkland area held the zone's communication on March 26th virtually. Congratulations to Quinn Sawchuk for placing first in the junior speech category and to Sviana Bjornsson for placing second in her intermediate speech category. Good luck to Quinn in the provincial competition. All first place members move on, while the second place are alternates. Now we have an article about celebrating Mom on Mother's Day. Unique and creative ways to celebrate Mom on Mother's Day. On Sunday, May the 9th, millions of people will celebrate the special women in their lives, particularly the mothers, grandmothers, and stepmothers, who often tirelessly care for those they love. Created by Anna Jarvis in the early 20th century and designated as an official United States holiday in 1914, Mother's Day is a special day in many families. Apart from birthdays, primary female caregivers may not always get the recognition they deserve, nor be entitled to a day to kick back and relax and let others take the helm. Mother's Day entitles them to something special. Even though the way people have been living has changed during the COVID-19 pandemic, Mother's Day may be the first holiday on the calendar when the world can finally regain some sense of normalcy. But caution should still prevail during Mother's Day celebrations. Thankfully, there are plenty of creative ways to celebrate mothers and mother figures this year. For example, dine truly al fresco. Outdoor dining has become commonplace, and even before it was a safety measure, enjoying a meal on a sun-soaked patio or overlooking a body of water was popular. If you're worried about limited restaurant space or crowds, plan a picnic at a scenic location such as a botanical garden or country park. Include Mom's favorite foods and enjoy the fresh air and delicious foods together. Another idea is creating a photo slideshow. Digital photos have eclipsed prints in many people's hearts, but too often digital photos never get seen after they're initially taken. That can change when you compile a slideshow of favorite photos from childhood and even present-day photos that Mom is sure to appreciate. Use sentimental music or Mom's favorite songs as the soundtrack, and include some inspirational quotations or personal voiceovers. This is one gift that can be shared in person or over group meeting apps. How about a get-together? An especially meaningful way to honor a mother who is always giving her time and love is to become involved in a difference-making organization. Joint volunteerism is a great way to spend more time working toward a worthy goal. How about enjoying her hobbies and interests? Devote a day or more to trying Mom's interests and hobbies, whether they include hitting the links, knitting, singing in the church choir, or digging in her garden. How about an edible gift that you could send? If you can't be there to celebrate with Mom in person, have a special meal delivered to her door. Then enjoy the same foods with her via Google Meet, FaceTime, or Zoom. Don't forget a tasty cocktail so you can toast the special woman in your life. Mother's Day celebrations can be unique, heartfelt, and customized based on family needs. CN Subdivision Lots Almost Gone by Owen Devereaux. He who hesitates is lost, especially when it comes to buying real estate. On Tuesday, April 20th, Neepawa Town Council approved the sale of 3 additional residential lots on the former CT property. With these latest purchases, 45 of the 46 pieces of land that were made available to the public earlier this year are now spoken for. 2 of the lots were sold to Agassiz Builders, a contractor based in Neepawa, in the amount of $45,000 per lot. A single lot, Lot 3, was also approved for sale at the special meeting in the amount of $45,000 to Ricardo Sandoval. The town of Neepawa initially purchased the property from CN Rail back in 2013 for $450,000. Stonecliff Builders, Inc. recently asked for and ultimately received a parking space variation on a local housing development. This is different than the first part I just read. This is Town Council news. The building company is working on four new 2-story buildings on 35 Howden Avenue that would serve as a rooming rooming houses for new arrivals planning to work for High Life Foods. Those individuals would be able to stay in the complex for a month until they're able to arrange living quarters of their own. Under the municipal regulations for our rooming house, 1 parking space is required for every bedroom within the facilities. That would therefore require 128 individual parking spaces. Since all the occupants would be new arrivals to Canada and just starting their careers with High Life, it's unlikely they would immediately have access to or be purchasing their own vehicles. Stonecliffe asked Council to consider lowering the number of mandated parking space from 128 to 88. Council agreed with the request, although they did add an amendment should additional spaces be needed in the future. Should the 88 spaces not be sufficient, Stonecliffe must sacrifice the intended green space planned for within the development and convert it to additional parking stalls. Next on the agenda, a WMRL presentation. Representatives of the Western Manitoba Regional Library, or WMRL, recently spoke to Council. The Neepawa Public Library Branch Supervisor, Deborah Unger, and the WMRL Director of Library Services, Danielle Hubbard, discussed the programming and available outreach between all of the participating libraries. The mission of the WMRL is to enrich lives and strengthen communities by providing universal access to broad and diverse collections of resources relevant and responsive to community needs. Now for the councillor reports. Councillor Murray Parrott has noted that the first in-person medical clinic meeting since October was recently held. Discussion at this gathering included noting that there may be a delay to the installation of the UV therapy booth, as the installing company is based out of Ontario. Due to recent changes to interprovincial travel from Ontario to Manitoba, the arrival of the workers has been complicated. Parrott also notified Council that negotiation of the lease with doctors will begin in May. Darren Pudlow provided an update on the Neepawa Kids of Mud Youth Cycling Program starting on Thursday, April 29th. The program, under the current regulations of Tuesday, April 20th, will be on Thursday and Sunday evenings for 8 weeks, with the last scheduled ride set for June 20th. Then, Daryl Gerard provided an update to the most recent White Mud Watershed meeting, which was held on April 15th. The discussion primarily focused upon upcoming projects for the season and a review of its budget. Next was the Manager of Operations report. It has been confirmed that Jack Follows has formally retired after 41 years of service with the town of Neepawa at the cemetery. The town thanks Jack for his years of service. The sidewalk tender has been issued, and spring cleanup will continue through to the first week of May. Summer staff positions, for the most part, have been filled. Notifications have already gone out to all those who have been hired. Seed has been ordered for the soccer fields and the dike project that was constructed last year. Next is the CAO report. The town of Neepawa has received a letter from the Minister of Municipal Relations regarding a one-time top-up grant to the community's local handy van program. $10,000 has been provided to assist the endeavor. There are specific parameters for the usage of this support, specifically for the offset, the per kilometer charge for clients traveling to and from vaccination appointments that is located outside of their home community, and the purchase of protective equipment. Next is an article about the chicken barn property. And as advertised in the Neepawa Banner and Press, the Neepawa and Area Planning District, or NAPD, Board held a public hearing on April 26th to consider a housing proposal for a large parcel of land locally known as the Chicken Barn land. The proposal calls for setting up some highway commercial area south of and parallel to Veterans Way. South of that, over 200 units of housing are proposed. The owners are local farmers Danny and Ron Bray. According to Jeff Braun, Development Officer and Building Inspector with NAPD, the hearing went well. Braun said at a request by the owner's consultant, there were some minor alterations needed to the map. He added that the next steps are to send it to our regional planning office, to have the map adjusted to suit the request from public hearing. Then it will come back to the board to receive a second reading. Once the second reading is done, it will go to the minister for review and approval prior to third reading and adoption by NAPD. Carberry, North Cypress Langford News, Here and There by Gladwin Scott. Like most recreational facilities, the local bowling lanes have been very quiet during the last year. For Carberry Lanes manager Sylvia Swanepoel, this would mark 30 years. She has trained over 3,000 bowlers. Some are kids of her original kids. Swanepoel is the current president of the West Bend 5-Pin Bowlers Association. She has received a lifetime membership in the Manitoba 5-Pin Bowlers Association for her dedication and leadership. Sylvia was named Grassroots Coach of the Year in 2010 and also received the Carberry Sports Volunteer of the Year from the Chamber of Commerce. She is also a 5-Pin bowling officials clinician. Keep up the good work, Sylvia. Jostin North is a 15-year-old Carberry collegiate student who is quite proficient in archery. He was to participate in the Nationals in Winnipeg Sunday, April 18th. However, due to COVID-19 restrictions, most other provincial archers were unable to travel. Jostin competes in the cadet division and does much of his practicing out at the Mott farm, shooting into bales. The Santa Clara Baseball League held its annual meeting in Neepawa Tuesday, April 20th, with all 6 teams returning for the 2021 season. The Austin A's, Carberry Royals, Neepawa Cubs, Ebb and Flow Lakers, Plumas Pirates, and Portage Padres are planning for a 15-game schedule for each team. Playoff structure will be similar to last year, with all 6 teams involved and the top 2 teams getting a first-round bye. Warren Birch of Carberry was returned as president, with Tom Yando from Plumas as his vice president. New health regulations will require coaches to wear masks. The Western Hockey League has announced that all playoffs have been cancelled due to the pandemic. Saskatoon, Brandon, and Winnipeg are on top of the 7 teams who finished their 24-game schedule April 30th in the Regina Bubble, which is played at the Brandt Centre. The 7 major junior clubs are housed in the University of Regina dormitories. Individual and team awards will be presented in each of the 4 WHL divisions. The first of 2 Grand Slam championships in the Calgary bubble ended Sunday, April 18th, with Bruce Mowat of Scotland doubling Brendan Botcher 6-3 in the finals. Rachel Homan won the women's division 6-3 over Switzerland's Silvana Tirzoni. Mowat made a spectacular last rock shot to score 2 and edge Brad Gushu of St. John's, Newfoundland, 5-4 in the semifinals. Botcher tallied 4 in the 7th to defeat Kevin Cooey in the other semifinal. Mowat received $25,000 and the championship cup, while Botcher took home $17,000 as the runner-up. Holman downed Carrie Einerson, 2-time Canadian champion, 5-3 in the semifinal, and collected her 11th Grand Slam crown after giving birth to her second child 3 weeks earlier. The same 24 world-class rinks, 12 women's and a dozen men's, competed for the Players' Championship, April 20th to the 25th. Derek Semigalski of Carberry plays second for Mike McEwen's foursome, which is skipped by Reed Carruthers, as Mike is back in Winnipeg with his wife Dawn, who delivered their second child. After 2 Grand Slams, Carrie Anderson will represent Canada in the 14-country World Women's Championship in Calgary, the final of 7 high-profile curling events. 25 years ago, the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame was established to recognize players, coaches, umpires, managers, and teams who had made substantial contributions to the sport. The attractive museum at Morden was officially opened in 1999 by Terry Hind, former Winnipeg Goldeyes general manager and 1997 Hall of Fame inductee. An annual banquet, which drew 500 to 700 people, was held from 1997 to 2019, but was cancelled for the 2020 and 2021 due to COVID-19. The next banquet is slated for the first Saturday in June 2022. Neepawa will host the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame Golf Tournament, Friday, August 27th, 2021. Further information is available from Landon Cameron at 476-5711 and also Don Schmall, 476-2345. Carberry Collegiate students were out in full force to clean up the town on Earth Day, Thursday, April the 22nd. Okay, now I've got a little bit more to read here. There's another portion of this week's banner and press called the Farmer's Advocate. So we'll see if we have enough time. We'll read through this. The front page has a beautiful picture of a little boy and a little girl, Evan and Caitlin Rogers. They learned more than just academics during their time of remote schooling during last year's school shutdown. They got some face-to-face time with the sheep on their farm near Eden. Okay. Haylands and Grasslands Welcome Waterfowl by Wayne Hildebrand. April is prime time for migrating waterfowl to return to southwestern Manitoba. Why is this area so special to waterfowl? The wetlands, haylands, and grasslands of the Prairie Pothole region are some of the best waterfowl habitats on the planet. Spring is a critical time in the life cycle of a duck. The migration from their south winter home is a strenuous journey. Early arriving duck pairs are quick to seek out areas to feed, breed, and nest. Lakes and wetlands are often frozen in early spring, so ducks search out shallow depressions in farmers' fields and pastures that fill with runoff from melting snow and rain, says Habitat Conservation Specialist Roy Bullion. He says the nutrient-rich soils warm rapidly and create an ideal environment for the growth of aquatic invertebrates, such as insect larvae, snails, and shrimp. These provide the protein and calcium the nesting hens need to build up their energy to produce a clutch of eggs. The female duck chooses the nesting area. Healthy stands of haylands and grasslands are a welcome sight to nesting waterfowl. In most cases, the hen is homing to the site of her birth or a site where she successfully hatched a nest. The hen targets sheltered spaces near water with a lot of vegetation so she can stay safe and camouflaged while she incubates her eggs. Of the ducklings that hatch, 40 to 60% will not survive to fly. Ducks need wetlands to survive. Across the Prairie Pothole region, including southwest Manitoba, wetlands and natural grasslands are disappearing. Estimates indicate up to 70% of wetlands have been lost or degraded in populated Manitoba. Most ducks in Manitoba will be raised on private farmland, says Habitat Conservation Specialist Ian Fortune. So he said it's important to develop and implement programs and policies that provide financial incentives for landowners to retain and restore wetlands and nesting habitat. He said there are a number of conservation organizations and watershed districts in Manitoba that offer incentive programs. Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation, or MHHC, offers financial compensation through conservation easement agreements to landowners who are interested in protecting wetlands and important uplands for the benefit of waterfowl, species at risk, and other wildlife. MHHC also offers wetland restoration programs to restore previously drained wetlands. In partnership with Delta Waterfowl, MHHC also installs and maintains duck nest tunnels, primarily in the Minnedosa and Shoal Lake regions. Each spring, 12 of the most common duck species make the flight north to the Prairie Pothole region. Up to 50% of the North American population of 8 of these duck species is supported by prairie pothole habitat. For more information on wetland conservation programs offered by the Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation, contact the Habitat Conservation Specialist Roy Bullion in Shoal Lake at 204-729-7592, or Ian Fortune in Hamiota at 431-235-3058, or Wes Pankratz in Minnedosa at 204-867-0337, or go to the website at www.mhhc@mb.ca. Canadian beef industry expands ambitious long-term goals. The Canadian beef industry knows it has a vital role to play in being part of the solution for climate change. Building upon 5-year goals that were outlined in the 2020 to 2024 National Beef Strategy, the industry has now identified a suite of ambitious 10-year goals that provide clear messaging about the process to continually improve how cattle are raised and enhance the natural environments under the care of beef farmers and ranchers. We are pleased to announce the second phase of these goals, addressing improvements in water and soil quality, supporting the health and safety of people throughout the supply chain, improving beef quality, and incorporating technology to improve efficiencies. This entire suite of long-term goals highlights the work of the Canadian beef industry as integral for climate change mitigation, supporting communities, embracing innovation, and the overall sustainability of our food system. We want Canadians to know that we share their concerns around climate change and the need for a resilient food supply, notes Bob Lowe, an Alberta rancher and president of the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. Raising cattle in Canada is good for the environment, and these goals demonstrate how we are thriving to make every sector of the industry even better. Tyler Bjornson, chair of the Canadian Meat Council Beef and Veal Committee and current chair of the Canadian Beef Advisors, adds that we are committed to doing the right thing for our land, our animals, and our environment, and this is precisely what these goals are meant to demonstrate, this unwavering commitment. The wide variety of topics covered in the long-term goals underscores the vast benefits of raising beef cattle in Canada, beyond supplying global protein demand, and addresses all 5 of the principles of beef sustainability adopted here in Canada: natural resources, people and community, health, animal health and welfare, food inefficiency and innovation. The goal development process was collaborative and iterative, receiving feedback from multiple stakeholder groups to inform and refine these goals to be both ambitious and attainable. The group responsible for overall delivery of the goals is the Canadian Beef Advisors, which consists of elected leaders and staff representation of the 7 national beef organizations responsible for policy, marketing research, and sustainability. They are a diverse group of experienced industry representatives who are responsible for advancing the strategy for the industry stakeholders, providing recommendations on food direction, and reporting results against the strategy goals and objectives. Learn more about the vision and goals for a dynamic and profitable Canadian cattle and beef industry at www.beefstrategy.com. Here's a picture from last year, a sure sign of springtime, and as you can see, this tractor is very stuck. This photo was taken around this time last year along Highway 250 between Newdale and Rivers. The tractor sunk into the muddy field, which was still soggy from the spring melt. Due to an almost snow-free winter this year, however, conditions in many areas are much too dry for this to happen now. All right, census data will help Canadian farmers. With the pandemic continuing to influence how we shop and prepare meals for our families, national agriculture and sustainable local food supplies are top of mind for many of us. That's why it's important for farmers to have access to critical information required to make informed decisions about their operations and to continue to be competitive and strong trading partners. Statistics Canada's Census of Agriculture is an important tool that helps farmers see emerging trends in ag technologies and practices. Its results allow the industry get a snapshot of the state of the agriculture in Canada. The census is the only source of community-level data that ensures that the unique perspectives of farmers, farm communities, and agricultural operations are included when making decisions that affect them and their livelihood. The data are essential to defend the interests of farmers and the agriculture industry in trade disputes and to ensure market access. They provide fact-based evidence to inform government decisions regarding financial support programs for Canadian farmers. They also help to ensure the impacts of disease outbreaks and climate change, such as fires, floods, droughts, and storms. The 2021 census is almost here, and there are a few things Canadian farm operators should know. In early May, all farmers will receive an invitation letter with easy-to-follow instructions on how to complete the questionnaire online. To best support farmers at this busy time of year and to help reduce their reporting burden, concrete steps have been taken to make the 2021 questionnaire quicker and easier for them to respond. This means that only questions relevant to each operator's farm will be asked when filling out the census questionnaire online. It also means that selected questions may be replaced using high-quality alternative data sources when available. More information on the census can be found at www.census.gc.ca. And the last 3 things I'm going to show you are 3 pictures. This one is just entitled Sunset Glory. It was captured just west of Neepawa. And here we have 2 sisters, Rachel and Rosanna Davidson, helping to take care of all sorts of animals on their family farm, from tiny chicks that they're holding in their hands to goats, like their pet goat named Monster. And the last article or picture is threshing at Franklin. A threshing unit and machine are pictured here with Mr. George Kerr at Franklin. While a date for this photo was not available, the equipment used shows its age. Look at these old tractors here, and this is being pulled by horses. And I see these farmers on this side holding pitchforks in front of a huge thrashing pile. Anyways, that is it for today's edition of the Neepawa Banner and Press. We will see you next time. Goodbye for now.